What's up everybody, Matt Moran here for another My Week With video. So this week I am driving the 2020 Jeep Wrangler Eco Diesel. This one in particular is an unlimited Sahara trim. The diesel engine you can only get with the unlimited four-door version of the Wrangler here. It's also only available with the 8-speed automatic. You can't get it with a manual like you can in some other Wranglers. And so a couple little important things to note right off the bat. But if you're curious about a normal full review of the interior and all that kind of stuff, I already did a review on the Wrangler Unlimited with the 2-liter 4-cylinder turbo engine last year. So you can go watch that video if you want to hear all my thoughts on how the Wranglers drive in general and what the interior is like and stuff. This video I'm just mostly focusing on the engine and all the changes that go along with the engine, because it's not just the engine that's changed. Because the engine has changed, they've made a bunch of other changes as well. So first thing you notice about this diesel in the Wrangler is it's noisy and loud, much more so than both the 4-cylinder and the V6 engines you get in other Wranglers. And so obviously this is something you expect with a diesel engine. No one was expecting it to be super quiet or anything, but it is noticeable. And Jeep even said that they went and added some additional sound deadening to the interior here. And you know, I still think that it's more noisy than like this very similar engine is in the Ram 1500 Eco Diesel. Those still have even more sound deadening, I think, because it's a quieter experience in that Ram than it is here in the Wrangler. But you know, just coasting here, it's really very muted. You don't really hear it much. The main times you hear it is whenever obviously you're under acceleration, at idle, all those types of things. You know, the engine takes a split second longer to start up. All those things are the unique diesel things. But obviously if you're interested in the diesel, those are things you most likely are not bothered by. So while we're turning onto a back road here, we'll sample the power in the Wrangler diesel, and here we go. So it pulls really strongly and gets up to speed very quickly, actually. So it's a 3-liter diesel V6 engine, turbo diesel, and it does 260 horsepower with 442 pound-feet of torque, and that is what you feel, because the horsepower is very similar to what you get with the 4-cylinder and 6-cylinder you know, V6 gas versions of the Wrangler here, but that torque figure is way over what you get with any of those other offerings. I think the best those can do is high 200s, right around 300 pound-feet of torque. So this is really impressive, and it moves this thing very well. For some reason, a lot of automotive outlets were saying that the 0 to 60 time would be a good bit slower than what it is with the 4-cylinder and 6-cylinder gas engines, and those are, you know, about 6.5–7 seconds. I personally think this is right in line with that, maybe even a little quicker, just because you have so much torque. Now these do weigh about 400 pounds heavier than the gas Wranglers, so there is some extra weight to get up and move. But honestly, the amazing thing is just like passing power. It really, because you do have to wait a little bit for the turbo, although the lag isn't bad, and this 8-speed automatic does a really good job of, you know, giving you the downshifts when you need it, but otherwise relying on that torque. But you know, passing power on the highway and stuff, this is by far obviously the punchiest of all the Wranglers. And so if you're going for the absolute most power, get the diesel. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised with that. Unfortunately though, the towing rating isn't any higher here in the diesel than it is with the other gas Wranglers. So still 3,500 pounds. They say that's mostly just because the chassis cannot handle any additional weight for towing. So this engine combined with the Gladiator is probably going to be the towing champ whenever that does come. I'm assuming it is. But in the meantime, you know, and the Gladiators, also even the gas versions, are better for towing. So if you want a Wrangler but you want to tow, I would just recommend getting a Gladiator personally. This engine I really enjoy though, just even around town and stuff. If you don't mind the extra noise, I mean, having that extra punch is great. And it's also just you know, pretty smooth diesel. Although it's noisy, it's not very rough. There isn't any excessive vibrations or anything coming through the cabin, and so I'm actually impressed with the refinement of this diesel application, again, even though you do have a little bit of noise. The shifts are also very smooth and refined here in the Eco Diesel. So it runs an 8-speed automatic like the other Wranglers with an automatic, but this one is actually like the same one you get in the Ram 1500. So it's beefed up to handle the extra torque here that you get with a diesel engine. But as far as programming goes, it's been, I don't know, maybe 6 months or so since I was in the other Wrangler, so I can't do a direct comparison. It's not super fresh, but I will say that it seems to be very similar as far as the gearing and as far as all that kind of stuff goes. Very responsive, just like how it is in the Ram and the other one is in the Wrangler. So really love, it's still a ZF 8-speed, so really love the way that that's set up. And I still think, although you can't get a manual here with the diesel, I don't think you're missing out on much. I personally love manuals. Every car I've ever bought has been a manual, but for a Wrangler, I just think an automatic makes a little more sense, because you really got to row at those gears a lot with the manual. So the automatic here is just, I think it makes a little bit more sense. So earlier I mentioned how there's a bunch of changes here for the diesel version of the Wrangler, and there are many. Aside from, again, the additional weight, that comes down to several different things. Now the engine is very similar to the one in the Ram 1500, but there are several unique things, and they've routed everything in a different fashion. So this has better off-road capability and can ford water better than the Rams can. So they did a bunch of changes to the engine. They, like I said, beefed up the transmission here. That adds to some of the weight. There's also 2 additional skid plates than what you get on other Wranglers. They also had to retune the entire suspension to accommodate that extra weight and the heavier nose here with the diesel engine. So they completely redid the whole suspension setup as far as just tuning stuff. I don't think there's anything that's mechanically changed. You also have quicker steering with a steering ratio of 14.3 to 1 versus, I think it's like 15.6 to 1 there with the other versions of the Wrangler. So you actually have the sharpest steering of all the Wranglers here with the EcoDiesel. The two-door version of the Wrangler actually is even looser. I think it's like 17 to 1 or something for that. So I do like the sharper steering here in this, although it still is very inaccurate steering and very loose whenever you're just trying to even fight wind gusts and stuff. You're swaying at the wheel a lot more with this than you would be with any other normal SUV, but that's just part of the Wrangler experience. Same thing with the ride and all that kind of stuff. Even though they retuned the suspension, it is still the same as any other Wrangler in my opinion, as far as very low limits around corners and things like that. But gives you that Jeep feeling that you're going for, and that's why you're buying a Wrangler and not one of the other Jeeps that are obviously much nicer for the same money. And you still have really good off-road capability, of course, with the diesel. And they also, by the way, all the diesel versions come with Dana 44 axles, so that's something you usually have to pay extra for in other Wranglers. Here with the diesel, they needed those beefier axles to accommodate the extra power, and so that is one thing that makes this a little more off-road ready than a standard Wrangler would be. But of course the Rubicon gives you all that kind of stuff as well. Another thing about the diesel to mention, and someone actually asked me this on Instagram, was how long the warm-up is compared to the gas. And honestly, it seems very similar. I didn't do a straight warm-up run because I was doing a lot of short trips in this vehicle, but what I noticed was that in my driving here, I would say it took me about 4 to 5 minutes in a cold winter environment to start getting heat in the vehicle, and I would say it's close to 8 to 10 minutes maybe for a full warm-up, which is honestly fairly close, within a minute or two of what I usually see with other gas vehicles in the winter time here. So I don't think there's really any noticeable difference as far as the warm-up time goes, so nothing to really complain about there. Another interesting change here to the diesel is that you have a smaller fuel tank over the gas version. So the gas versions of the Wrangler, you got a 21.5 gallon fuel tank. This diesel, you only have an 18.3 gallon fuel tank. But of course, that's offset by the better highway fuel economy you get in the diesel over the gas versions. But an interesting thing there, because that's such a cut to the fuel tank range, I'm getting lots of Jeeps waving at me. That's one fun thing with the Wrangler experience, is you always get that Jeep wave, and it's pretty consistent. Most Jeep owners seem to do it still. But anyway, back to the fuel economy here, is that you get a nice improvement. So compared to mainly it's a highway fuel economy, because these are rated at 22 in the city, just like what you get with a normal Wrangler 4-cylinder. I think the V6 versions are a little bit lower by a few mpg, but as far as that 2-liter turbo 4-cylinder, you're getting basically the same city rating. Now the highway is the big jump, because the highway, even with that 4-cylinder, is only a 24 mpg rating, versus this is 29 mpg on the highway is what they claim. And so because of that, you get maybe 20 more miles of extra range over that 4-cylinder on the highway, just because you have that smaller fuel tank once again. And so that means that you have over 500 miles of range theoretically here in the Wrangler EcoDiesel, which is good. Like I said, the 4-cylinder, you're still going to get pretty close to that. The V6 is really the one that doesn't get great highway range, and so if you're looking for a fuel efficient option, I think the 4-cylinder is also a very strong choice. I've been driving this vehicle for 133 miles here, and my driving was primarily city driving, but I only managed to get 19.6 mpg, which is almost identical to the fuel economy I was getting in the 4-cylinder Wrangler, and that I actually did, I think, a little bit more highway, so this might be a little bit better than that, but they're very similar as far as the driving routes and stuff, and so, you know, and that makes sense considering they both the turbo 4-cylinder and this diesel V6 do the same rating of 22 in the city for the MPG rating, so really kind of makes sense that I'm getting the same city rating. So that's really also going to, you know, it comes down to whatever your type of driving is. If you're going to be doing most of the city driving, you're not going to probably see much of an improvement in fuel economy with the diesel, and probably isn't worth the upcharge. But if you are doing highway stuff, that's where you're probably going to see those biggest gains. And so that really, you know, leads me to my last point here, which is the extra cost of this diesel. So basically, it's a $4,000 upcharge. Now, keep in mind all the other changes I mentioned along with the diesel engine. That's why it's a $4,000 bump. So while that sounds high, you know, it's not too bad. So, you know, you consider like the V6 is the base engine, and then you have the turbo 4-cylinder, which if you're going just from an automatic to an automatic, it's a $2,000 upcharge, and then the diesel doubles that to being a $4,000 upcharge. So for $2,000 more over the turbo 4, it just comes down to, I guess, what your preference is and what you're looking for. But honestly, me personally, I think if you're looking for good fuel economy, the turbo 4-cylinder still is a really good way to go, because this diesel, you know, you still have a little bit of turbo lag, and it does have stop-start, but it doesn't have the e-torque system that you get with the turbo 4-cylinder, and so with that, it has a little bit of a smoother stop-start than what you get here with the diesel version. So, you know, refinement, I think, is still a little bit better. You have the quieter driving with the 4-cylinder, and so if it were me, I would probably still go for the turbo 4 over the V6 diesel or gas. So that's what I would do. Another person also on Instagram asked me, you know, what kind of Wrangler would I build? And obviously, I'm a sports car guy. I like taking corners quickly and stuff, so I don't envision myself ever buying a Wrangler. But if I were to get one, I think if you're getting a Wrangler, you're getting it because you want the off-road capability. You want to have, you know, really impressive off-road capability. And so with, you know, any Wrangler, you're going to have a leg up on basically any other SUV. But I think if that is your goal, then you're better off just getting the Rubicon and getting most of that stuff from the factory. That way it's all warranted, and you have, you know, all that stuff kind of just bundled into the OEM quality standards and not aftermarket stuff. So that would probably be what I would pick. Now, for me personally, I don't care about going off-road, so I would probably just go for like a Freedom trim or something like that. I would go for an Unlimited because you have a more stable ride than you get with the 2 doors, and you have, you know, the quicker steering and all that kind of stuff. So I would definitely do an Unlimited. I would want to get, you know, one of the ones which has the bigger touchscreen infotainment to get the smartphone integration. I'd want the LED headlamps and all those types of things. And so, you know, I would be probably around a $45,000 Wrangler personally. This EcoDiesel, as tested, is just barely over $55,000, and part of that is just because this one has like adaptive cruise control, which I think I don't really see the value in that still. I don't know how many people take their Wranglers on long road trips, and so personally I don't think the adaptive cruise. It also has the automatic emergency braking, all that kind of stuff with it, and thankfully Jeep does allow you to separate that from the other safety stuff. So I would do the blind spot monitoring package. I think that's nice to have, and, you know, do those other more basic safety features, but I would skip the advanced package with all that other stuff. And so, you know, if I took off a few of those extra packages and stuff, this one would be a little bit lower, but like even at $55,000, this Sahara Unlimited trim doesn't come standard with heated seats or heated steering wheel. So this one, I've been driving in the middle of winter, has not had heated seats or heated steering wheel. Now that's only a $700 option. I don't know why this one didn't have that option, but that would certainly be an option I would want to make sure I got. But yeah, this diesel, it is very noisy still. So, you know, you just have to make sure that if you want the diesel, you're committed to that diesel experience and having the louder noise and stuff. But overall, it's, I think, a great addition to the Wrangler family here. And, you know, it just comes down to, again, what your personal preference is as far as whether the upcharge is worth it to you. But I think that it's really great that they've added this engine, because I know a lot of people in the Jeep community have been wanting a diesel for a long time, and so now they have one, and hopefully they all enjoy it. But I think it's a really well done diesel, and I do think that it gives the Wrangler, I think, even a little more character than it had already. But anyway, huge thanks to Jeep for providing me with the Wrangler EcoDiesel here to review for you guys today. Let me know your thoughts on the Wrangler EcoDiesel in the comments below. Thank you guys very much for watching. I'll see you on the next one. Take care.